Good day. Thank you for joining me. Part 5, The Oracle Guide on the Both Folks Broadcasting Network. This is Part 5. You can see from the title what the subject of today is going to be. One of my favorite subjects, women. But before we get off into that, I need to address a few things. Do some house cleaning. A lot of people seem to be caught up, upset about how we began the series in the beginning and talking about the origin of things. A lot of my Arab brothers and sisters upset because they want to quibble about which part of Africa was the beginning, and in some way someone taking credit or homage from them, and that's not what we're doing. Okay, early on, Arab people in this area were nomads, and they traveled around, and they would be in one part of Africa or another part of Africa, and they were also conquerors. They would go into a certain part and then conquer that part and make it a part of their empire. And this is just what happened. All right, and eventually also they ruled in Egypt. And still do today. Okay, but in between that, there were pharaohs from other places. There were pharaohs from Ethiopia. There was pharaohs from Greece. There was pharaohs from Rome. There was a lot of different people that ran Egypt at a certain time. The time period I'm talking about is before all of that. People still seem to have a disconnect, understanding that before the Suez Canal was dug in the 19th century, in basically our time, before that happened, you could walk. I've said this many times, but people seem to not be getting it. You could walk from Africa into Europe, into Asia. Thus, a lot of the conquest that happened from northern Africa into other places like Spain and Italy and such, India. Okay, so I feel like I need to straighten that out because people all been out of shape about this. I even had one person, European, admittedly, is what they said on their response. And they were trying to convince me that Caucasians were the ones who were in control at that time and making all of the advances and such in Africa. How is that possible? I know that's what you want to believe, but just by being in Africa and being this close to the equator, the sun determined your skin tone. The sun determined your hair. Okay? This is not possible. You know, it's okay. All we're talking about is the facts, the truth. Don't get hurt. Don't get all swollen up because you wish things were this way or that way. Let's just deal what it is. And don't get so hung up on, like, we have a long journey here in search of God. All I spoke about so far in the first 3 parts was just the origin, the beginning. And I'm moving forward from that. Okay? But a lot of people stuck right there. They can't agree on that. They're trying to convince us. They say, Mesopotamia, which is now in Iraq and Iran and this, that, and the third. Understanding, if you look at the ancient map before Suez Canal, which is not even ancient, 19th century, it was all within the continent of Africa. Mesopotamia is not a continent. Nobody ever said the words Middle East. There was no Middle East at this time. The time I'm talking about, no Middle East. All right. At the time I'm talking about, the first book hadn't even been written in Europe. The Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer in Greece. It hadn't been written yet, but still thousands of years before that. So, again, let's move forward, okay? Now, what I want to speak about when it comes to women, all right? If you look at the ancient Africans, they were not hung up on trying to keep women as inferior. Whenever you heard about a god, you heard about a goddess, hand in hand, okay? Even still today, like it's said that behind every good man is a good woman, because it's very difficult, and especially today, to move forward, and you need all the help you can get, all the strength you can get, and a lot of that comes from women, okay? If you look back in the ancients, how Africa saw it, before we got to the, let's just say, romantic writings of Europe, where they went in and changed things in Judaism and in Christianity and Islam, and they went and changed things so that they could try to keep control over women. They were concerned about being in control of women, so they made changes in those books to start out with the fact that women were inferior to men. Not a partner, but inferior. And, unfortunately, women are not getting their just dues in that, all right? Because not only that, but there was a lot of women who were superior to men. I mean, that's just a fact, okay? Did you realize that one of the pharaohs was a woman, Hephaestus, okay, was her name? She dressed like a man so that she would have the respect of the people that she was ruling over, but she was a woman. And in fact, while she was pharaoh, she came up with the first versions of birth control. Birth control. I'm telling you, medicine back then, okay, medicine did not come into play from Greece, right? I know you're being taught that Hippocrates was the father of medicine, right? Hippocrates, the father of medicine. When you become a doctor, you take what? The Hippocratic oath. Hippocrates, calling him the father of medicine. But if you read his writings, he says he learned in Egypt from Imhotep. That's what he says. You understand? So I'm just saying, the truth of where these things originated at and came from. Not, it was a city next to Egypt. Okay, again, all Africans. We're talking about Africans. That's what's the important part. Whether he was from a city outside of Egypt is really not important. But anyway, if you go to Egypt, again, looking on the side of the wall, inside the pyramid, you'll see a sketching, all right? Goddess Nut, right? And in the sketch, with her hands down, head here, and her legs over here towards the bottom, and she has no clothes on, all right? And then this is a story, right? And then God Shu, who was the god of the air, okay, is a story where there is shown that He's holding up Goddess Nu, and his one hand is on her breast, and the other hand is on her vagina. All right, and the story says that he's holding up the pillars of the world. Okay, where the world came from. Right, because as far as I know, there's never been a man born or a woman born who did not come from a woman. Men don't make children. That's done inside of a woman. And in fact, we spend a lot of time after we're pushed out of there. We spend a lot of time trying to make it back there. This is what it is. All right, because everybody understands that. So instead of looking up in the sky and looking for heaven, any man who has a woman or is married or whatever, when you go to bed tonight, you're going to bed with heaven. Okay? Why is this important? Because we need to especially teach young people to have respect for women, not raping women, not abusing women, because we've changed in our society where women don't have the same priority any longer, and this is wrong. Okay, this is leading us down a terrible path. There have been a lot of great things done since the beginning of time until today by and for a woman. So this is what I wanted to address. The ancient Africans, they didn't have a problem with women. They didn't have a problem with women being in high positions. This is something that's more a European concept, where someone thought, if we write it down, and we write down that we're superior and women have to be inferior and under us, this is a way to try to control women. And this is not the way. This is not right. And there's plenty of evidence, facts, evidence to support that. All right? Let's have a dialogue. Comment below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also the bell notification to know when new videos are coming.